February 21st, 2020. Okay guys, I've got a super exciting topic to talk to you today, and we're going to talk about poop. That's right, we're going to talk about our poop. So, if you've watched any of my past content, you know that it's really important for me to be aware of our environmental exposures, whether that's from injection, medication, food, pesticides, the air we breathe, whatever. We need to know what kind of chemicals we're exposed to each and every day and to what extent it is harming us, especially for those that are medically fragile, or let's say medically damaged by the medical establishment in reality, and just our horrible living conditions in general when it comes to overload of toxic exposures in our world today. So why poop? Why are we even going to go down that road? Well, you already know how I feel about vaccines, but there is something that actually affected our the reduction in the mortality rates of infectious disease. And while vaccines try to take the credit for it, and we've all been brainwashed to believe that lie, in reality we know that clean water and sanitation, roadways, refrigeration, and yes, the establishment of regulatory agencies that help regulate the cleanliness of our food, and not selling rotten meat to people. And recent examples would be food that's contaminated with viruses and bacteria that are dangerous, like E. coli. In the romaine lettuce, every year there's some kind of outbreak of E. coli or listeria in the food, and they get put on a watch and say, don't go buy it until we make sure this is taken care of. So as much as we complain about regulatory agencies and where they're falling short, they still do have their place and want to make sure that things are safe, and they do their job, which is great. But what we want is for them to do better. So clean sanitation was one of the most safe and effective tools to eliminate infectious disease. We have indoor plumbing. We have flushing toilets. It's amazing. And just think of a city like New York, where you have 20 million people all living in this very small area in high rises stacked on top of each other. Well, each and every single one of those people have to poop, just like you and I. And they do their business, we do our business, we flush the toilet, and magically it goes away. It's like on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. The out of sighter. Out of sight, out of mind. But what the heck happens with all that crap? Where does it go? What do we do with it? Right? We're keeping it out of our water supply, kind of, and having clean water to bathe in and cook with and drink. But where did it go? Well, that's where our regulatory agencies come in. So what we need to do is take a look at what happens. The term for it is biosolids, or sewage sludge. Sewage sludge, biosolids, biosludge, it's all the same meaning. So what is it? Well, let's look over to the EPA and learn about it. EPA.gov biosolids. Let's learn the basics. The term sewage sludge is used in EPA regulations that establish a protective regulatory framework to manage the use and disposal of sewage sludge. The term biosludge or biosolids and sewage sludge are often used interchangeably. They're the same. When properly treated and processed, sewage sludge becomes biosolids, which are nutrient-rich organic materials produced from wastewater treatment facilities. That sounds wonderful, man. What a win-win. We're eliminating exposure to all these nasty waste products from our biological waste and creating organic materials Like fertilizer? Nutrient rich? Man, this is just getting too good to be true. Biosolids can be recycled and applied as fertilizers to improve and maintain productive soils and stimulate plant growth. Awesome. Effective sewage sludge and biosolids management options help ensure that useful materials are recycled on land and harmful materials are not released to water bodies. This sounds fantastic. Is it really how it works? Absolutely not. We're being sold a bunch of lies. Why? How? Well, just think of your own bathroom. Okay, just think about your own family. What's being flushed down the toilet? Is it just human waste? Is it just our poop? No. What about, do you ever clean your toilet? Yes. Do you clean it with all natural products? Some people do, some people don't. The majority do not. They're using Lysol, Clorox, whatever product that is extremely dangerous, synthetic chemicals that you would never ingest. You're wearing protective gear with gloves, making sure it doesn't splash on you. You're scrubbing the toilet clean and you flush it away. Wait a minute, all those chemicals are going to the same place that we're creating organic fertilizer out of? That's right. Now let's think bigger than that. What else gets flushed down the toilet? People's drugs, and I'm not talking about their pharmaceuticals. I'm talking about their heroin, their cocaine, all these other things. That all gets flushed. But what else gets flushed? The pharmaceuticals. Your Benadryls, your non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, your antidepressant drugs, drugs kids stole from somebody's house and then mom found it and it gets flushed, or they flush because they don't want to get in trouble. Whatever it is, it's getting flushed and it's going into this exact system, and they're calling it organic fertilizer, and it's going into our food. And so yes, you may be avoiding exposure to glyphosate, glufosinate, 2,4-D, dicamba, and maybe a handful of other pesticides by going non-GMO and hopefully organic. And there's hundreds of other pesticides that are not going to be included in that organic, but you are going to get exposed to some natural pesticides, some overspray from the synthetic pesticides. But what about all these chemicals that are being flushed down the toilet, especially the medications? How are we controlling the dose and exposure of all this? That's the question we need to be asking. And is it really safe? And the answer is absolutely not. So let's jump over and look at some recent articles. This one from Salon, February 17th, 2020, just a few days ago. Now this one focuses specifically in Washington State in the area of Tacoma, but it's a valid topic for anywhere in the United States and potentially other countries in the world that are using the science and tools of biosolids. Just keep in mind, this is just another way to leverage eliminating toxic waste by selling it back to the public as a benefit. They do the same thing with fluoride, right? Fluoride is a toxic waste byproduct of the aluminum industry. And what better way to deal with that toxin than to just sell it back to the citizens of the world and poison them and make money on it? Same thing happening here. So the use of biosolids in agriculture is increasingly coming under fire as a potential health and environmental threat. Each day, about 20 million gallons of sewage flows into the city of Tacoma's wastewater. The water is separated, treated, and discharged into the Puget Sound, which leaves behind a sludge, a mix of human excrement, industrial waste, and everything else that ends up in Tacoma's sewers. The plants further treat the product to reduce pathogens, bacteria, heavy metals, and odors, and convert it into fertilizer called biosolids, which is high in phosphorus, nitrogen, and other nutrients that might help plants grow. Again, it sounds great in theory. Tacoma produces about 5,000 dry tons of biosolid annually and sells it in bags under the brand name Tagro to about 9,000 customers at local hardware stores, as well as to urban gardeners and farmers in the Tacoma region. The focus here has been on recycling and the production of beneficial products, clean water, energy, soil amendment, fertilizer, including biosolids. Now, over 50% of the approximately 130 million wet tons of sludge produced nationally each year is treated and applied to crop lands, which the U.S. Environment Protection Agency notes is less than 1% of U.S. farmland. Yeah, right. They give this stuff away for free. Farmers take it up and use it all over. I mean, why do you think E. coli is growing into these lettuce plants and stuff? E. coli comes right from our intestinal tract in our crap. As fertilizer, it's popular with some farmers because most wastewater treatment plants give it away for free or sell it at prices that are below than the cost of synthetic fertilizers. Again, if it was just our poo, that'd be one thing. The use of biosolids in agriculture is increasingly coming under fire as potential health and environmental threat, however. While some see it as an effective way to close the loop on recycling, waste, some scientists, health professionals, and advocates say using biosolids in agriculture is poisoning the nation's farmland and compounding a number of health risks. Advocates argue that without stronger comprehensive regulations that cover what type of waste can be used in biosolids, as that waste industries are allowed to spend into public sewer systems, the nation is taking unknown risks with its food and water supply, not to mention the health of farmers and people living in farm communities. Okay, it goes on and talks a lot about what's in it. So what is in it? Any and every chemical that's ever used in your household is in that biosludge. Okay, it contains up to and over 90,000 man-made chemicals, and we don't even know what new chemicals are made synergistically by combining this into this sludge. So no one can say if biosolids are safe. Such concerns are driving some states to take a closer look at biosolid sewage management programs, and as increased testing is consistently finding levels of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFASs, that are alarming health officials and the public. Ultimately, the debate over biosolids comes down to two basic questions. Can anything be done to ensure that they are safe? And if this waste can't be recycled as fertilizer, what can be done with it? And that's really important, right? So we're trying to do something with all this crap. We're trying to make it as clean as possible and turn it into fertilizer and reuse it, but what if we can't? And the problem is we really can't because of the toxic environment we live in. We are creating this problem and only impacting and making it worse because we over-medicate everybody. We have these toxins in our food. We add 80,000 toxins to all the processed foods. And then it's just this horrible cycle of poison, in and out. And then it just continues to concentrate and become worse and worse and worse. And we're only getting sicker because of it. Now you guys can go in here and read all about this problem and all the different chemicals and all the health concerns that come about it. I'm just trying to point you guys in the direction of issues you should be aware of because they're hidden out of sight, out of mind. That is the point. So now it's no longer out of your sight and it is on your mind, and it's something you need to pay attention to because these topics do end up in a lot of cases in your communities as legislation that you can vote in favor of or against, just like fluoride, right? They couldn't just say, oh, we're going to put fluoride in the water. No, they had to sell it to you and convince you to believe that there was a health benefit, and then you all voted for it. And now you all pay the price for voting for such a thing. This is something we need to be aware about and try to influence as citizens against. Not only is our crap and all these chemicals and medications and poisons in there, they're now focusing on human composting as a way to be environmental friendly, adding human body compost and human dead tissue into the biosludge, just adding to the whole cannibalistic view of this world, and it's disgusting. So you can go over to Natural News, just search on their website Biosludge, and you'll find some great articles. Very recent, this one's October of 2019, where they're looking at passing laws to make dead human tissue okay for being added to the biosludge. Seattle company caught dumping toxic waste directly into sewers, where it's later turned into biosludge. So you're getting all this industrial waste and heavy chemicals into this biosludge. They're converting it into organic fertilizer and selling it or giving away as something eco-friendly. It is not. Again, human composting, legalization, promoted as organic fertilizer. This one's from November of 2019. So you can read all these articles, and I'm just trying to kind of be that laser pointer to bring things to your attention that we're not meant to really think about, because they want to keep it a secret and just see what happens. Brighteon Films, you can go directly over to the website and they'll ask you for, your email to get access to the film. There's a documentary done by Mike Adams, again, Mike Adams of naturalnews.com, where he did the research on biosludge and created a great documentary. You can go to Brighteon and gain access to it, but someone did upload it to YouTube, and so lucky for you, you can just go directly over to it. This channel's Peddling Profits. The movie was uploaded, and it's the Biosludged film documentary. Now I'm just going to play for you guys the first couple minutes, so you can just get an idea about what it's about, how big of an issue this really is, and then we'll move on from there. So let's try that.
Everyone that I've talked to about this issue had never heard of it, and it is the greatest environmental crime in America.
The Capital Regional District has rejected a proposal to reconsider sewage treatment. Oak Bay Council is leading the charge for an independent environmental assessment to compare the benefits of treating sewage to leaving it untreated as it is now.
This is where biosolids are being produced. Everywhere across America, everywhere that a toilet flushes, everywhere that sewage lines converge in a city, they have a biosolids problem and they have to get rid of it.
Raw sewage. Find a way to make it a little more useful for local farms by creating fertilizer.
But the question is this change safe and sanitary?
When Tom Estabrook is gardening, he's not thinking about what's in the soil.
I don't worry about that whatsoever. Remember, everything you flush down the toilet goes into these biosolids. If you wouldn't put it in your own garden, don't flush it down the toilet.
Maybe you may or may not know, but EPA regulates under our environmental statutes, like the Clean Water Act, like the Clean Air Act.
But there's no Clean Soil Act, which means that the government has said we can mass pollute the soil and call it legal and call it green and call it recycling.
So gross.
So we now have government legalized pollution. And it's been legalized by the EPA, which I would say, in my opinion, is a highly corrupt organization that needs to be radically reformed to actually protect the environment like they used to do back in the 1970s. The EPA and we, as a country, have inadvertently created really a devastating vector for bioterrorism of ourselves. Biosludge always contains one chemical we found. There's one chemical that's a marker for it. It's Benadryl, the over-the-counter drug.
Okay, you get the point. Go watch it. There's so much to learn about the number of toxins that are in the soil that are being sold as eco-friendly, and it's just a way to cheaply get rid of this, and we have to come up with something better. Now, I mention a lot about how our regulatory agencies have been hijacked, and basically by industry. They run them, and science is for sale, right? So to truly understand the depth and complexity of Science is for Sale, I highly recommend this book, Science for Sale by David L. Lewis, PhD. So he's a researcher, a scientist that worked for the EPA for decades, and he witnessed, and again, back in the 70s, their job still is, but they actually did their job and was out to protect the environment and humans. And over time that was corrupted because of the power of industry and their control, because they are the same people that created the education system. And so they control the entire narrative of what's being taught and what's being labeled as safe. Now, scrolling through this, I just wanted to get to, not the foreword, but the prologue. Okay. I'm going to recommend you buy the book and read it. Right now, I'm just going to read through the prologue. Then we'll call it a day. Simple video. Okay, Science for Sale. Prologue. This book reveals in graphic detail how government control over the scientific enterprise, which President Dwight D. Eisenhower predicted would eventually pose a grave threat to America's future, has finally come to pass. It also builds upon the prolific work of authors Daniel Greensberg, Sheldon Krimsky, David Michaels, and others. The American silver plug penny minted in the 1970s proclaims liberty as the parent of science and industry. The founding fathers were convinced that the freedom from corruption was vital both to a healthy economy and to scientific progress. Few people today would disagree, and recent highly publicized events surrounding the collapse of the housing market, corporate fraud, and the dire need for campaign finance reform has made the public well aware of the alarming influence the corrupt special interests have gained over the political process in the last several days. I almost disagree with that. I don't think the public is that aware. I think there are pockets of people that are aware, and the rest go on about the business. While their insidious effects on the economy are well documented, most people have only had a glimpse of their impact on science. During my 30 plus years as a research microbiologist in the EPA Office of Research and Development and at the University of Georgia, I experienced the far-reaching influence of corrupt special interests firsthand. And this book will describe my dealings with civil servants, corporate managers, elected officials, and other scientists, expose the ease and disturbing regularity with which a small group of individuals, motivated by profit or personal advancement, can completely hijack important areas of research science at even our most trusted institutions. And you want to ask yourself, why are they the most trusted institutions? Well, it's no accident that our trust is engineered that way when they've never earned it. The result is that today, many government-funded scientific endeavors have become little more than an army of industry, marketing efforts, and government policy makers. Many factors lead to the ease with which the scientific process is corrupted by outside influences. Some are largely unavoidable. The complexity of the science itself often makes it so that only a tiny fraction of outside observers have the background knowledge to notice when the pieces don't add up to a whole. On top of that, research is expensive, time-consuming, and inherently risky, making it hard for the small number of people who are able to understand any given area of research to unveil the corruption. And it's purposely designed to be that way. They keep it overly complex so that only a few understand what's going on and can call out the corruption, and those that try are silenced. But the culture of our scientific institution and the priorities of many of their leaders share a lot of the blame. A 2008 survey of scientists by the Cambridge-based Union of Concerned Scientists reflects that many of my colleagues have become accustomed to, Researchers reflects what many of the colleagues have become accustomed to. That is, researchers are systematically subjected to top-down pressure to avoid conducting research or drawing conclusions that undermine government policies. In a great many cases, those who do are fired, have their career dead-ended, and are sometimes even prosecuted and imprisoned. These problems are mirrored in industry, which hires scientists to support its business, and they have spread to universities, which are heavily invested in obtaining grants that ultimately support government policies and industry practices. You see, the system is built to support the system. It always has been. If the trend continues, integrity in science may one day become about as rare as a silver plug penny. Too late. We're beyond that point. Unfortunately, organizations dealing with scientific misconduct are designed only to weed out those who commit fraud behind the backs of the institutions where they work. But the greatest threat of all is the purposeful corruption of the scientific enterprise by leaders within the institutions themselves. The science they create is often only an illusion, masters of illusion, designed to deceive, and the scientists they destroy to protect that illusion are often our very best. Throughout my career as a research scientist, I've worked in areas where policymakers and industrial managers have a keen interest in controlling what gets published in the scientific literature. I have watched government officials, university administrators, and corporate executives manipulate science without restraint time after time to advance and protect their own interests, funding scientists to carry out research projects with predetermined outcomes, fudging the data, using false allegations of research misconduct to eliminate scientists who question their science. Since 1996, I've spent much of my time fighting governmental, industrial, and academic entities jointly engaged in efforts to stop my research and discredit my co-authors and me by any means necessary. This book describes the most important issue that my co-authors and I have investigated, along with important research topics that leaders at government agencies and in the corporate world have prevented me from ever undertaking. Along the way, I've discovered much about the methods that are sometimes used within government agencies, corporations, and academic institutions to manipulate science. My co-authors and I, for example, were the first researchers to document adverse health effects associated with treated sewage sludge, biosolids, applied according to EPA's current regulations, the 503 sludge rule. This rule allows municipalities to collect industrial pollutants at wastewater treatment plants and spread them on farms, forests, school playgrounds, and other public and private lands without monitoring any pollutants other than 9 metals and 2 nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus. EPA's attempts to stop our research and discredit the research which, with false allegations of research misconduct, prompted 2 congressional hearings by the House Science Committee, a review by the National Academy of Sciences, and the passage by Congress for the No Fear Act of 2002. At first, Democrats in the House of Representatives refused to support efforts to clean up the scientific fraud and the silencing of concerned scientists behind EPA biosolids programs. Of course they did, choosing instead to cast Republicans as an anti-environmental for attacking EPA's regulations. I'm just laughing because history always repeats itself. Then a Senate briefing was scheduled. Republicans torpedoed that effort. Similarly, I spent almost 2 years obtaining and analyzing the UK General Medical Council's confidential documents behind allegations of research misconduct that Brian Deere, the British medical journal, published against Dr. Andrew Wakefield. In the process, I discovered a document showing that the analysis of patient records that Deere published in 2010 perfectly matches an analysis requested by the General Medical Counsel's lawyer in the GMC proceedings 4 years earlier. The analysis which Deere published in the BMJ was the result of a deliberate plan by individuals working for the GMC to conflate a blinded expert analysis of biopsy slides with routine pathology reports to make it appear that Wakefield had misinterpreted the records to link the MMR vaccine to autism. What the GMC lawyers could probably never get away with in the courtroom, which was to condemn Andrew Wakefield for research fraud. Deere accomplished by publishing the GMC's convoluted analysis in the BMJ. Again, another time that Andy Wakefield was proven right. And he was attacked and destroyed by the power of industry. Okay? The top of the top. I hate calling them the elite because they're not. My hope is that this book will give our judicial system, the news media, and the general public a better idea of what goes on behind the scenes, where enormous resources are being invested to create the illusion of science needed to protect government policies and industry practices. Somehow, we must find a way to prevent this illusion from supplanting the real science that is desperately needed to protect public health and the environment. It is up to us to ensure that future generations do not pay the price for the institutional research misconduct that has become such a large part of science during our generation. And I'm sorry that was so long, but it is so important. And this goes beyond biosolids. This goes beyond vaccines. This affects everything. Everything. Everything about our lives today is driven by science. And that science is only valid if it's pure. And guess what? It's not. It's not pure. It is corrupt. It is bought because science is for sale. Labs want to be funded, and they'll only get funded if they support the industry's agenda. Everybody is affected in every way by this type of corruption. So, the book goes so much more in depth. Buy it. Pick up a used copy. Get a Kindle version. I don't care. Read the book. Okay. Is that it? I think that's it for today. I want to take my wife on a date for once and go have some fun. And I got to tell you, the most impressive people in this world are the siblings of special needs kids. My kids are so empathetic, loving, resilient, caring, responsible. Literally, they are the only people we trust with Holden's life. We rarely go on dates, but when we do, we're okay with it because we know his siblings know how to handle it. It's sad. They've experienced so much trauma every day. We all have, this is beyond post-traumatic stress. We have continual stress because every day holding your child through near-death experiences every single day, it takes its toll, especially on little ones. And my kids have been dealing with this for 10 years. My daughter just turned 10. Her whole life, she carries so much stress, but she's so on top of it. She's such a good girl, and she's so loving, and she's such a defender to everyone because she watches her brother go through so much hell, and then she sees kids at school making fun of seizures and being bullies and calling other kids retards and all this horrible, mean things. And she is a warrior and a defender, and so is my other son, Carter. And so is Caleb. Caleb hasn't been as in depth into this, but he's experienced it too. And all I can say is, I don't know if anybody can relate to it other than those that are going through what we go through every day. And those that do, they get it. That's one of the best things about living here in Colorado Springs is there's a huge support group of special needs families that all actually relocated here specifically for medical marijuana. And that's a whole nother topic that we're going to dive into. But all of us had to uproot our lives and leave our families years and years and years ago to gain legal access to medical marijuana, not just CBD, but all strains, all forms of medical cannabis products, which are fantastic. But having a support group of friends that get it, they understand you because they live that hell every day too, that's important. So if you're going through that, plug in to whatever group you can that's also going through it. It's awesome. But even then, you'll only trust who knows your child, because every one of these kids is unique, just like all of us. But their struggle is intense and uniquely intense. And so you have to know it intimately and know how to handle it. And it's a big deal. And my kiddos are amazing. They're amazing. They're heroes every day. And I love them. Total sidetrack, but I had to say it. Anyway, guys, science is important. The data is important. But the purity and accuracy of the data trumps everything, okay? That's why conflicts of interest are so important, and industry's gotten really good at hiding conflicts of interest, but you better believe that it's there and that we all pay the price at some level because of it. And that's why it's so important to me that everybody starts looking at everything. Take off the blinders of the mainstream media and look everywhere you can. I love citizen journalists. I love following so many different people that have so many different viewpoints about everything. Obviously, I focus a lot on health and nutrition and environmental exposures, but this goes the same for politics, space, universe, weather, everything. Expose yourself to as many sources as you can. What you believe to be credible sources and what may not be so credible sources. Because guess what? A lot of truth is uncovered, but what? By people you may perceive as not credible. The motives behind their or the intentions behind their motivation is important. For me, I don't want to see any other family ever go through what my family goes through. So I sound an alarm to everybody that's around me to hear, this is dangerous. Look at the data. And people listen or go, man, that kid's wacko, right? Or guy, I'm not a kid. That dude's wacko. And that's fine. They at least heard it. That seed was planted. And somewhere down the future, they're going to hear it again and go, huh. Maybe that dude wasn't so wacko, and there's something to this. And that's why everyone needs to speak up. Everyone needs to speak up, because the more alarms that are sounding, the more impact and the more rapidly people will wake up to the truth and start owning their life and taking action. Anyway, biosludge. Where's all the crap going? What are you flushing down your toilet? Let's clean it up. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Love you. Bye.